that's one of the reasons I think that I want to talk about, pragmatism today. Um, I want to talk about it not so much because I'm trying to change anyone's vote, because I'm really not. Anybody can vote for whoever they want to. That's never something that I think that we should say you shouldn't vote for this person. But I think that it's dishonest to try and couch it in a spirituality. It's dishonest to try and couch it in some sort of Christian ethic about who would God choose in this. Because reality is God ain't choosing neither one of these people. This is this is Saul times 10. You want a king? Okay. Pick between these two things.
Well, this is worse than that, I would submit, because at least David came after Saul. God showed the people, okay, this is who I've choose. This is David's grandson. That's what we're looking at. These are two of David's grandchildren. The kingdom's torn apart, man. You want no part of me? You will have a kingdom that has no part of me. It's going to be torn into pieces, and there's nothing that you're going to be able to do to stop it. All your cleverness and all your rhetoric and your bleeding and running off at the mouth will not extricate you from this trap that's closed about your knees. It's not going to open it. You're just going to be stuck and bleed out in the woods. Pastors all over this country should be telling their congregations to fall on their faces and cry out to God for mercy. He's delivered us into the hands of these evil people. And all these clown shoes trying to justify one over the other are doing nothing except lying to themselves. Just one lie after the other. And it's on both sides. My stepmother, who sent me a private message about how complex the times are and all the stuff that we have to do and what our prayers will accomplish. It is prayer that will change things so that the world that your children inherit will be a place of possibilities. And so their generation will understand their responsibility in navigating and impacting the world that they are inheriting. It's prayer that will change things, not the God that you pray to. Talk about pragmatism.
That is the belief. The belief is that we are the ones who are going to affect this change, not God. Or worse yet, that by forcing God's hand, our prayer forces God's hand to make him do what we want him to do.
I'm just tired of talking with dead people. Just tired of it. But for God's grace, I'd be dead myself. I mean, people who just insist on it. No, decomposition is great. I'm not fit for human consumption, brother. I'm not. So I think I better hear your lesson and shut my mouth.
But see, I will say this, right? See, it's the prophets are never fit for human consumption. And I'm once again not calling you a prophet. What I'm saying is, like my brother told me yesterday or Friday that let me recount this correctly. We were having a conversation, and my brother said to me that even Jesus, he didn't use the word sin, but he said that everyone behaves at one point or another in a way that is not right, even Jesus. And I said, you have to bring some scripture to that for me. And what he said was that when Jesus went into the temple, um, he did what he did because he was angry, and that was wrong. I said, who says that was wrong? The statement that he made was that you have defiled my father's house. As such, he was well within his rights to purify his father's house. But additionally, and more importantly, because my brother has often heard that, it's wrong to be angry. I had to make it clear that anger is not wrong. It is the expression of anger that could be sinful. It's the way in which the anger is expressed that is sinful, not the anger itself. Anger is something that is a God-given emotion. God himself gets angry, right? So my larger point is this. We are in a society and a culture today that when we say something that makes people uncomfortable, the immediate response is to try and silence. It's no longer about discussion or debate. It's about silencing you because you make me uncomfortable or I don't like what you said. This is why all the prophets got killed. This is why they were chased. This is why they were chopped up. This is why, even the people to whom they were sent dealt with them so horribly, because you're telling us things that we don't want to hear and you're making us uncomfortable, right? That's what it's all about. We have a bunch of examples from Nathan to John the Baptist and everybody in between. You take your life in your hands when you tell people the truth.
Well, I see a large part of the problem is because it's not about truth at all. So if I'm telling you something because I want you to hear it, not because it's the truth, right? Just because I want you to hear it, right? So a lot of times that's the response to, I just want to shut you up because the truth at all. We're in a totally different place, and Christians in general are in a totally different place, because a lot of times my brothers might be telling me something I don't want to hear, but it's still the truth, right? And I have to adjust accordingly. But we live in a society where people just want you to hear what they have to say, and it has nothing to do with the truth whatsoever.
I would say that is half true, because the reality is when you say something, if it is contrary to what the accepted norm is, the goal is not to hear you out, nor is it to discuss with you, nor is it to debate with you. It is to shut you up. And that is actively being done. That is actively being done in the culture today, from the boardroom to the classroom to the office. That's exactly what's being done. And part of that is just the way things are because of who runs the world. But also part of that, I think, is because of who we have been perceived to be based on the actions of others, right? I posted something a little while ago about extreme love, and we're going to deal with it in a lesson today. And everyone's favorite atheist said, you can have extreme Christianity as long as it doesn't hurt other people. The hell does that mean? You see? But the answer is, you don't have a biblical definition for what Christianity is, and so you're using a definition of your own choosing, which is essentially, if it disagrees with my ability to do whatever I want to do whenever and to whomever, then it's wrong.
That's such a biased statement, because if I take the word Christianity out and I put atheist in it, it should ring the same way, and it doesn't. Right? You can have extreme atheism as long as it doesn't hurt anybody. You're an extreme atheist and it does hurt people. Mm-hmm.
That's the truth. But once you get to the root of, see, and this is where I always wrestle, is that you have to define the thing by its classical definition, not by what you think it is. And so for someone to be atheistic, non-theistic, at its extreme, the goal is to silence the rights of others to be theistic, because you are atheistic. With some religious systems, the goal is to silence and to permanently silence those who are in disagreement with your particular system or ideology. Not so with Christianity, right? And that's, I think, a segue into what we're going to talk about today. So let me just pull it up. The perils of pragmatism is what we're dealing with today. And so we need to define some terms. What is pragmatism? Pragmatism says whatever works is good. Pragmatism is an American philosophical tradition centered around the linking of practice and theory. It describes a process where theory is extracted from practice and applied back to practice to form what is called intelligent practice. Important positions characteristic of pragmatism include instrumentalism, radical empiricism, verificationism, conceptual relativity, a denial of the fact-value distinction, a high regard for science, and fallibilism. What does that mean? Pragmatism is a practical approach to problems and affairs. All right? So you notice how we're calling that practical. That's going to be huge in terms of our understanding of this particular system of approach and why Christians should not involve ourselves with it. To be pragmatic is, number one, to advocate behavior that is dictated more by practical consequences than by theory or dogma. That is huge. Because to say that we are advocating behavior that is dictated more by practical consequences rather than theory or dogma is to deny the Bible. And we're going to see how that works out. Utilitarianism says, do that which provides the greatest good for the greatest number. Now, my second favorite atheist, that is what he calls himself. He is a utilitarian. Do whatever provides the greatest good for the greatest number. The problem is that good is not clearly defined. And in our culture today, anything that speaks about any firm definitions of anything is perceived as being bigoted or hateful, etc. So what do we do with these things that are considered bigoted or hateful or whatever? We silence them, because that does the greatest good for the greatest number of people. The Bible makes it clear to us that the road is narrow, and wide is the way that leads to destruction. So what is on the greatest, where do the greatest number of people fall into? What's good for them is not allowing them to do whatever they want to do. What's good for them is telling them the truth, but we don't do that. Utilitarianism, also utilism, is more commonly known as the greater good argument, the belief that the right course of action is the one that maximizes the overall good of the situation. It is the idea that the moral worth of an action is determined solely by its usefulness in maximizing utility as summed along all sentient beings. It is a form of consequentialism, meaning that the moral worth of an action is determined by its outcome. The most influential contributors to this theory are considered to be Jeremy Bentham, Xavier Wiesenrader, and John Stuart Mill. The arguments given by people to justify unethical acts are usually utilitarian. I wasn't ready to have a baby at that point in time. It's my body. I can do what I want to do with it, and I wasn't ready to be burdened. Or better yet, what was the most famous one? I wouldn't want my daughters to be punished for a mistake. Punished with a baby, he said. Okay? The arguments given by people to justify unethical acts are also usually utilitarian, which is to say that a given act is defended on the grounds that it is beneficial to someone, aka the ends justifies the means. The problem is that inherent in pragmatic utilitarianism is selfishness. Selfishness denotes an excessive or exclusive concern with oneself, and as such, it exceeds mere self-interest or self-concern. Insofar as the decision-maker knowingly burdens or harms others for personal gain, the decision is selfish. In contrast, self-interest is more general. Self-interest is merely including one's own needs and desires in the schema of priorities, and is inclusive of both cooperation and selfishness. Selfishness is the opposite of altruism, which is selflessness. We together so far? We good?